When the new Congress convenes tomorrow, members will have a very big job ahead of them, working with President Trump. And it won't be easy, at least in the opinion of two high-profile politicians, one just starting his career in the Senate, the other nearing the end of his life, both of them blasting Trump's leadership. Former Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney, who's about to become a Utah senator, writes in the Washington Post, quote, "His conduct over the past 2 years, particularly his actions last month, is evidence that the president has not risen to the mantle of the office." And in a new, rare interview, former Democratic Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who's suffering from cancer, doesn't hold back. He says Trump is not immoral, but is amoral. Amoral is when you shoot someone in the head and it doesn't make a difference. No conscience. He adds, "I think he is without question the worst president we've ever had. We've had some bad ones, and there's not even a close second to him. He'll lie, he'll cheat. You can't reason with him." Back with me, Bill Kristol, conservative commentator and director of Defending Democracy Together. Jason Johnson is the politics editor at TheRoot.com. So I am curious what you think, Bill, about why Mitt Romney decided to kick off his Senate career with that op-ed.
Yeah, I think it was a very purposeful and seriously thought-through decision. Mitt Romney is not an impulsive guy, and I gather he really wrote that op-ed himself, and it reads to me like things I've seen Mitt write in the past. I mean, it's not, I would say, eloquent entirely the way a kind of professional writer might make it, but it's sincere and earnest and heartfelt, and I think he felt it very important to put down this marker at the very beginning of his career as a senator, of coming to Washington, that he did not consider himself a player on Team Trump. Trump attacked him for not being a team player. But the whole point of the op-ed is I'm not on Team Trump. I'm on Team Republican Party properly understood, which for Trump is a different kind of Republican Party. For Romney is a different kind of Republican Party than Trump's Republican Party. And I'm on Team America. I mean, I care about the country and about its principles and its Constitution and world leadership and so forth. So I think it's a pretty big deal. It doesn't mean that Mitt Romney is going to live up to what every anti-Trump person hopes in terms of voting or in terms of criticizing things that some of us might criticize and he might hold back on. I think he's in a different position. He's an elected official, former presidential candidate, but you can't underestimate, his choosing to do this, knowing what he's doing, which he does, is a pretty important moment.
And he knew the criticism was coming. Ronna McDaniel, the GOP chairwoman, who also happens to be his niece, by the way, wrote this about her uncle and pinned it to the top of her Twitter page, by the way. For an incoming Republican freshman senator to attack Donald Trump as their first act feeds into what the Democrats and media want and is disappointing and unproductive. Of course, Jason, he's very popular in Utah, not a huge risk there. But does he risk ticking off some of the other GOP senators and Senate leadership?
I don't think Mitt really makes that risk. And I completely agree that, look, this was well thought out. This is meaningful. But there's also, I think, a certain level of personal aggrandizement in this. John McCain is gone. And for years, he was, if not the moral center of the Republican Party, he occasionally was the gadfly. He was the guy who reminded people, hey, this is what Republicans are supposed to be about, and would go against presidents, whether sometimes that was Bush, whether sometimes that was Trump. Mitt Romney wants that job. Mitt Romney wants to be sort of the consciousness of the true Republican Party in the face of so many people who completely capitulated to President Trump. I don't know if that's going to mean anything substantive. I don't know if it means Mitt Romney is going to vote against the president. I certainly don't think that this letter means he's necessarily going to primary Donald Trump in 2020. But I think he sees a power vacuum. I think he sees a narrative vacuum in the Republican Party in the Senate. And he wants to step in and be that person that's the go-to answer for whenever Trump says or does something offensive, whether it's in the policy space or social media.
Bill, if this op-ed doesn't say, and I agree with Jason on this, it doesn't say I'm going to primary the president, does it perhaps hint that if things go south for the president, if impeachment becomes a thing, any number of things, the Mueller report, if things start to look bad for the president, I'm here, I'm experienced, I'm willing to run again?
Yeah, maybe. It doesn't say I'm going to primary the president, but it does say this man doesn't have the character to be president of the United States. So it certainly opens the door for others. It provides a kind of umbrella, you might say, for others to begin seriously exploring it. As someone who's been involved in trying to get people to primary the president and save the Republican Party, I mean, I'd say until, a couple of months ago, certainly until the November elections, people said, oh, that's hopeless. Then the last couple of months, there were more indications. People began to say, yeah, maybe that's not crazy. It's uphill, but not hopeless. I think what Romney's op-ed does is make it clear that he, a very senior person in the party, the prior Republican presidential nominee, is saying this man is unfit to be president of the United States based on his character, not just based on this bad decision or that bad decision, but based on his character. And I think if you're some other more junior person thinking of throwing your hat in the ring or exploring or making a couple of visits to Iowa and New Hampshire, suddenly it's sort of not just one guy who's kind of flaky and out there. It's Mitt Romney has in effect legitimized the notion that the Republican Party can do better in 2020 than Donald Trump. That's very important. The Republican Party can do better and should do better in 2020 than Donald Trump. Whether Romney is the person to carry that torch, we don't know. But that's a very important message.
And in this ongoing cabinet meeting, as if he was watching us, the president just talked about Mitt Romney. He said, and again, I always caution people, this won't be necessarily an exact quote. You're in there trying to take it down as accurately as you can, but I wish Mitt could be more of a team player. I endorsed him and he thanked me profusely. The president then said he had great personal popularity in Utah and taken a shot. If Romney had fought as hard against President Obama as he did against him, quote, he would have won the election. Jason, what do you think about that?
I mean, look, first and foremost, Mitt Romney actually got a larger percentage of the vote than Donald Trump. So on that level, he's actually more popular across the country than the current president of the United States is. But I think, look, the president has a reasonable point. You just got to this job. The last thing you should be doing is coming in and criticizing me. And I think in this one particular instance, Donald Trump has a right as the president of the United States to sort of say that to Mitt Romney. I also think it's important to take into consideration that, while Romney has come forward and said, these are problems that I see with the president's character and morality, he's not gaining any friends, certainly on the left. And I agree. There's lots of people who have said, look, given Mitt Romney's own behavior, given how many times he was apparently kissing Donald Trump's butt in order to get a job, some of this sounds like sour grapes. So Romney's ability to be this sort of voice of contrarianism to Donald Trump is going to be based on him threading the needle between being a loyal Republican and not sounding like somebody who's just bitter that he's not in the White House right now. And I have confidence that he's that ability, but he's got to be careful, because if he just comes in banging the president every single time and yet voting with him every single time, it basically looks like sour grapes.
I also want to take a minute or two to talk about Harry Reid. And the New York Times did this interview with him. He hasn't talked a whole lot, frankly, since he left, and he is very sick with cancer. And I think the fact that he was so extremely critical of President Trump, using the language he did, isn't necessarily a shocker. But he also seemed genuinely befuddled by his former Republican colleagues. And I want to read one quote from the article. He said he could never understand how his former Senate colleague, Jeff Sessions, allowed himself to be so abused and humiliated by the president. Why in the hell didn't Sessions leave, he said. Same with Kelly, referring to the departing chief of staff. I'd say, go screw yourself. I could not look my children in the eye. I wonder, Bill, could this shutdown, if it goes on and on, bring any of the Republicans who have been loath to cross the president and who have left in many ways, people like Harry Reid befuddled, move over to the other side?
Look, I think it's a very concrete issue for Republican senators. Again, people keep saying it's Trump versus Pelosi. Can they cut a deal? If Mitch McConnell and Pelosi cut a deal, and there are 67 votes in the Senate for, let's say, those 6 appropriations bills, and obviously there'll be a lot of votes in the House, not more than just Democrats, they can override the veto. I mean, people are forgetting that it's a 3-part, it's a triangle here, not a whatever the opposite is, not just a 2-person match, Pelosi versus Trump. The Senate Republicans get a vote. They have for the past 2 years, much to my unhappiness, and I guess Harry Reid's and a lot of other people, been awfully compliant and subservient, you might say, to Donald Trump. But I'm not sure that holds up if we're in a shutdown that looks like it's being provoked. Foolishly, first Trump reverses himself. Now he's shutting down 6 agencies plus Department of Homeland Security over the wall. Fine, let's have the Homeland Security fight perhaps, but why does agriculture not work? And I think if you're Joni Ernst and you're in Iowa and you're getting phone calls from farmers and agribusiness saying, hey, I got business here with the Agriculture Department. They're helping me get this loan rolled over, or their people are supposed to show up tomorrow to help with this, and now it's not. Why are they shut down? They're not in the fight. This is a appropriations bills for these other departments that were passed by the Senate. So I think people are underestimating the pressure and the possibility that Senate Republicans break from Trump.
Thanks to both of you for sort of reacting in the moment with all this stuff. Again, the president, as far as we know, still in that cabinet meeting. And let's just say whatever your politics are, whatever you thought of Harry Reid, can we all just wish him well? Somebody who served his country in the U.S. Senate for 30 years, I think, at least 7 or 8 years as the Senate Majority Leader. And of course, even before that, he was a representative from the state of Nevada. So our best to Harry Reid and his family.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.